Okay. I came to a realization that to try to explain the proper way to select the president in many ways is futile, because we've been indoctrinated with the system that we have in a way that it's almost nonsense to try to help people understand why we can't do it the way we're doing it today. And that as a precursor to explaining how we would select the president, we have to talk about competition politics. First, what they're competing over and why it's a concern for us. Because we have this team mentality today. My team's better than your team. And that's actually not an accident. That's been ingrained into us. Ever since the Civil War, actually, because after the Civil War, what they wanted was to define the teams as North and South. Like we're still competing with each other. When that's never been the focus of government. And when we talk about competition politics and what they're trying to do with competition politics, makes that clearer. Because what they're competing over is the power, because they're competing for power and control over making policy, determining policy for our country, both domestic policy and foreign policy. And why is that important? Well, it goes back to the commerce, how we establish commerce and taxation. And this all goes back to what is the participation versus compliance agreement that formed our country, the Union. When the states declared their independence from the state of Great Britain, it was for the rights of a free and independent state. To do what? To have the power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things that a independent country or independent state by right may do. Okay? When they filed the Declaration of Independence, that word state was states, because each state was declaring their independence for that right to make those decisions and to act as an independent state. Okay? So if they wanted to work together, then they had to have a participation versus compliance agreement between the states to establish the benefits, the privileges, the rights of participation in decision making, and cost of membership in the resulting union. Okay? So that's what they were declaring their independence for. To do what? To make policy. Okay? Collectively make policy. Government isn't about governing the people at all. Or what they say, they said that the president governs, or he I forget the word that they use, but mostly it means that they make the decisions of the country when they govern, which includes determining our interest and what we're going to spend money on, which is policy. So after the Civil War, this actually began before the Civil War too. There was a big problem with controlling commerce. Why? Because of the slave trade and the participation of slaves in the economics of the commerce of the South. They not only had slaves for labor, their commerce for the product, goods, and services that they produced with slave labor was also impacted. Why? Because they had agreed to make those decisions collectively as the union, not individually as states. They could not establish their own commerce as a state. Not even the individuals of a state could contract or establish commerce with another country or with another entity inside another country without going through the United States and Congress assembled, which is the Union. Okay? So this is what they're fighting over. They're fighting over the right to make policy, which today boils down into establishing commerce and assessing taxes. Okay? And if we don't understand that, and those two things are supposed to be made by what? By the states collectively. Not by factions, but our states collectively. So what has the system been morphed into? The system has been morphed into a method to control commerce and control policy, domestic and foreign policy. And if you read the Constitution, especially when it comes to the assessment of taxes, to pay the debts of the nation, those taxes are supposed to be divided among the states. The costs are supposed to be divided among the states by per capita apportionment, which means that it's equal for each state based on their population. But they have converted that to individuals. So when they make domestic policy for taxes, who pays the taxes? The individuals pay the taxes. So what does that really do? That goes around that equality or the equity that is established by that per capita equality for apportionment. And it puts it off onto the people instead of where it's supposed to be on the states, because the states are making the decisions for all those expenditures together, with the full knowledge that they have already agreed to pay their proportion of those expenditures. And that's how they decide their vote in the Senate to concur or not to concur with the policy that is being legislated. Okay? Is through that, their proportion of paying for it. Now, if you don't believe me that what they did was shift control over this dynamic, all you have to do is look at the amount of money that is spent to elect the president and Congress. In 2020, they spent almost $15 billion in campaign funds to elect the president and Congress. $15 billion. Almost $7 billion for the president alone, and another $8 billion for Congress. Why would they spend that much money? Because they spend it on both sides. They spend it so they can keep control of the system. And guess what? They make you pay too, because they have what they call matching funds for campaign contributions. So whether you contribute to a campaign or you don't, they get matching funds from your tax dollars. Okay? So no matter which candidate you support, you're going to support their campaign, because they get matching funds. So not only are they controlling the system through the candidates they elect to have power in the system, they're making you pay for it too. And if that doesn't bother you, then we have a bigger problem in the United States than just that our governing system doesn't operate properly. Okay? But this competition politics, all they're competing for is the right or the power to determine policy. And if you look at that debate, that's where they decide whether they won or not, is whether their policies were more well received than the other candidates' policies. and we'll continue later. Thank you.